Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Fall Apart, Collect the Pieces. This will be Part 6, Chapter 8. He felt numb. He sat on his couch and stared at the headline, eyes tearing and stomach churning, but barely registering it. He was just so tired. Every time he thought he'd made some kind of progress, she was there, and he still wasn't sure if he was entirely in the right. His collection meant a lot to him. His notebooks were important. She'd been dishonest about using his money. Kachan, most of his friends actually, were insisting that she was in the wrong, but judging by the rising number of notifications on his phone, maybe she wasn't. Maybe he hadn't communicated well enough. Maybe he should have explained himself better. Maybe he should have taken time to show her his notebooks. Maybe he had made it clear that separate finances meant that she couldn't use his card without permission. Maybe, since his mother had been the one to insist on the prenup, she thought he really didn't care. Maybe, since he didn't give a long-winded explanation about the sentimental value of his collection, she assumed that it wasn't as important to him. And as #DownWithDeku started trending, he wondered if he was overreacting, if he was neglectful and controlling like the tweets said he was. He knew he wasn't. At least, he was pretty sure he wasn't. He didn't read the article. He couldn't. His heart was bleeding, and he didn't want to pry the wound open further. Besides, he had to watch his career tank in real time. "The fuck are you doing awake?" Katsuki grunted, shuffling out of the spare room. "It's ass o'clock in the morning. Go back to bed." "Can't," he muttered. "I gotta go in early." He knew keeping it vague was futile, but he had to try. Katsuki was not a morning person, and this would only make it worse. "Why the fuck would they call you in but not me?" he demanded. "It's a debrief," Izuku shrugged. Katsuki paused his trek to the kitchen. Slowly, he turned back to Izuku, eyes narrowed. "What happened?" he asked. Izuku didn't look up, focusing on the phone in front of him. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you're full of shit. They wouldn't call you in to debrief without me. What's going on?" he snapped. Izuku sighed, leaning back. "It's no big deal," he muttered. "It'll blow over, and you've been dealing with my shit enough. Actually, you should probably distance yourself for a few days until things cool down." He cut off when Katsuki literally growled. "What happened?" Silently, he held out his phone, flinching as Katsuki snatched it out of his hand. He waited as the blonde scrolled through his notifications, pausing to read every now and then. He didn't need to look. He knew that Kachan's scowl was growing with each passing second. "I'm gonna tear that bitch an asshole the size of the Mariana Trench," he snarled. "Leave it," he muttered. "I have a meeting with PR. Going after her would just make her look more sympathetic. It would probably tank your ratings, too." "If your rating tanks, so does mine," Katsuki insisted. "I'm your partner. I'm your fucking friend. You wouldn't let me go through shit like this alone, so why the fuck would I let you?" "Kachan." "If you spew some martyr shit, I'm gonna kick your ass so hard that you'll be shedding blood for a week." "It's not martyrdom," he insisted. "You going after her when she's in control of the narrative will end up with us looking unhinged. Besides, one of us has to stay afloat in the media for now. It can't be me, so it's got to be you." He snarled, baring his teeth in frustration. "If your rank tanks, then so does mine. Partners, Deku. We do this shit together." "I'm not saying we don't," he cried, finally looking at him. "I'm saying that you shouldn't go after her and execute whatever comically exaggerated revenge plot you just cooked up." The muscle in his jaw clenched and jumped as Katsuki ground his teeth. "She's a selfish, lying thief, completely self-serving. She screwed you over, and now she's making herself out to be the victim because she's lying in a bed that she fucking made. She keeps fucking hurting you, and you can't expect me to let her." Izuku's eyes roved over him, from the clench of his fist to the set of his shoulders, the care in his eyes. There was a time when he would have taken Katsuki to a doctor if he'd behaved this protectively. They'd come so far. The notion that Katsuki would tank his ranking just to stand in solidarity was insane to him. He was grateful for the thought. But he couldn't let it happen. "I'm not going to let her steamroll me," he promised. "I'm going to talk it through with PR. You can come with if you want, but retaliation won't make it better." "It absolutely would," he yelled. "She's painting you as some deranged man-child." "People can't know what's in the notebooks, Kachan. Villains would go looking for them. I can't speak up about the damage she caused without causing more. That's the only saving grace in the narrative that she put out there," he snapped. "If I retaliate about the collection or her shopping bill, I'm feeding into all the shit she apparently said. She got the microphone first. Anything I say is going to sound like I'm covering my ass. You know how this works." There was a mullish set to Katsuki's jaw, but they both knew Izuku was right. "Fucking fine," he growled. "We'll go to the stupid PR meeting.
After you eat breakfast. You don't have to. If I see you even look at a fucking granola bar, I'm gonna choke you with it.
Katsuki warned. He tossed Izuku's phone on the couch before turning toward the kitchen.
I'm making you a fucking omelet. Call for the town car. It'll be done by the time it gets here.
Izuku sighed, picking up the phone and finally dialing the agency. His assistant picked up, cooing and fretting. He asked her to send the town car, assuring her that he was fine. He could hear Katsuki cursing up a storm in his kitchen, and despite everything, Izuku found himself very grateful for the people around him, who believed in him, who fought for him. "Car'll be here in 20, he called toward the kitchen.
Get dressed then, dork. We can eat on the go.
Kachan called back, and he went without complaint, hoisting himself off the couch and traipsing back toward his room. His room, that was half empty. The gaps on the walls and the empty spaces on the dresser felt just as bad as when the space was filled with Ochako's things. Not nearly as bad as the empty room that used to house his collection, though. Maybe that was the real hurt. He had been hollowed out, his heart and his home violated by the person he'd trusted them with. How could he ever trust someone like that again? He got ready quickly, slipping into jeans and a sweater. Pulling a baseball cap over his curls, he slipped into the bathroom, washing his face and brushing his teeth. He went back into the living room and found Katsuki waiting for him at the door, Tupperware and forks in hand.
"Wear a mask, too," he grunted, slipping his shoes on. "It's pretty early, but you're recognizable."
"They're gonna know it's me if you're there," Izuku muttered, putting his shoes on, too. "Maybe we should stagger arrivals."
"No," Katsuki snapped. "Not letting you out of my sight while people are being shitty."
"I'm gonna have to patrol," he replied dryly. "I can't be with you the whole day."
"Bet you an entire month's paperwork the PR is going to tell you to take a desk."
"Bet you an entire month's paperwork that I'm not going to do it," he retorted. "They're not the boss of me." He couldn't help but relax at the reluctant smile that tugged at the corners of Katsuki's mouth.
"What's the fucking point of hiring PR if we're not going to listen to him, dork?"
"I never said I wouldn't listen. I just didn't guarantee that I'd comply," he shrugged. The car was outside, honking to catch their attention. "You can't judge me. You don't obey them either."
"That's because they tell me to do stupid shit like stop swearing," Katsuki scoffed, yanking the door open. "This is completely different."
"You really should stop swearing at children specifically," Izuku commented as they slid into the back seat. "But other than that, yeah, it's part of your charm." Katsuki flushed, elbowing him for good measure.
"Fuck you. All of me is charming."
"Sure, Kachan," he chuckled. "A very charming nuclear bomb." He wasn't kidding, but that was irrelevant. The meeting was going pretty much exactly how he'd anticipated. Katsuki was at his side, listening quietly with a scowl.
"The article is ugly," one of them said. "Have you read it?"
"Not all of it," Izuku replied, tilting his head back. He was so tired. "You should probably keep it that way," another piped up, smiling apologetically. "I'll send you bullet points, but you don't need to read what she said."
"In any case,
it's the best that you stay off your patrol route until this blows over. The public reception is—" They glanced at each other. "Negative," they decided. The picture painted was unflattering. "I'm not going to hide behind my desk. My job is to be a hero, not a celebrity. They can hate me if they want to. I don't need them to like me in order to keep them safe," he argued. "The picture she painted is that you're financially abusive and neglectful as a spouse. That's not going to play well on your patrol route. Acting like nothing is wrong could make it worse, too, like you don't care as opposed to not having something to hide. I'm perfectly content to act as miserable as I actually am, but I'm not abandoning my responsibilities because of bad press," he insisted. Katsuki huffed, sitting forward in his chair.
"Deku, they have a fucking point. It's shitty to get benched, but they don't trust you right now. She got to them. They see you as someone who prioritizes his own self-interest over the people he loves."
"Didn't stop Endeavor from being a hero," Izuku reminded them. "And it won't stop me. I know the truth, and you know the truth. The rest sucks, but if I let it stop me, then she's won." "If you go out there and lose your composure, she's won anyway," the senior PR rep insisted. Hina, if he remembered correctly. "Not to mention, if any heroes who don't know the full story side with her, it'll be bad news if they snub you during an emergency call," another one reminded him.
"Could we release a classified statement to all the other agencies in the area?" Katsuki asked. "I know we can't release that information to civilians, but what about other heroes?"
"That might work for heroes who aren't on duty yet, but anyone who's already on the streets won't stop to read a PR statement," Izuku reminded him. He was weighing his options now, truly measuring the potential pitfalls of going on patrol. Unlike so many heroes, he wasn't in it for perception. He was there to protect people. Sure, he wanted people to feel hope when they looked at him, but more than that, he wanted them to survive and thrive. "I'm going," he decided, squaring his shoulders and glaring the PR team down.
Kachan released an exhausted sigh. If it's too much, I'll call in and get a replacement for my route. Historically, that's bullshit, Katsuki pointed out. Izuku kicked him under the table. Considering that you have a tendency to keep going until you're basically a bone-dust meat sack. Gross. I'm just saying, are you actually going to ask for help if you need it, or are you going to pull your usual deku bullshit and pretend everything's fine until you break? Izuku glared at him. I haven't done that in years, he protested. And I don't appreciate having it thrown back in my face. And I don't appreciate you not taking care of yourself and ignoring all the self-care shit that you force down everyone else's throat, Katsuki snapped back. It's not just about perception, idiot. How will you feel when you're out there and people are being fucking awful to you? You don't deserve that. It's my job, he yelled. I'm not letting her take that from me, too. The room fell silent, and Katan was glaring at him, gaze searing through him. It wasn't an angry glare. It was searching. Izuku recognized that look. His partner was looking for all of his tells, gauging for himself whether or not Izuku could handle the pressure he was taking on. Finally, Kachan's shoulder slumped, and he scrubbed his hands across his face. Izuku had won this one. Promise, Katsuki demanded. Izuku nodded. I promise. And thank you for looking out for me. Yeah, Katsuki grumbled. Despite his earlier irritation, Izuku's heart twisted with fondness. He pitied people who didn't have friends like Kachan on their side. Get changed, loser. All right, listeners. This concludes Chapter 8 of Fall Apart, Collect the Pieces. Chapter 9 will be next. I hope you all are still enjoying it. As always, thank you so much for listening.